Sometimes I'll put the painting inside the print. Again, the aliens have arrived inside the tree.
When you often start with a tree or a mountain or...
Yeah, trees and an old big tree is a definite theme in my work. It shows
Yeah,
up all
for
the time.
sure.
Circles and
Tree of life.
spirals.
And your spatial architecture, the lines of
And then it can just become really abstract, you know, just looking for the pure abstract forms. I love working with color and form
That's
like
awesome.
that.
That's beautiful. I
Isn't
mean,
that
all
cool?
it's all beautiful, but that's really amazing. That's modern Picasso-esque.
Yeah, but it's also high tech in a way. This one I should frame and put somewhere. Actually, it's supposed to cost.
Yeah.
Kind of like it the other way.
It's kind of like stained glass too.
Definitely.
So how do you get this? Is this watercolor, or what is this medium?
Oh, this is a print from a digital printer.
From so you did this online on computer.
Yeah, I printed this out, and then it's underneath a shrink wrap. But
So how do
But
you?
the original pieces, these are all digitally created.
well, so this is a scan of a painting, and this is stuff I did in Illustrator. And then in Photoshop, I make these circles and squares, and I layer it all up and change the densities, and just play with it until I get the patina of.
And some of this is a painting, like
Yeah.
this
That's
texture.
why I said this is a painting. in
How
here.
do you get your lines?
Those are Illustrator.
And do you do them yourself, or you take
Yeah.
them from other work?
No, I just make circles and
Yeah.
intersect them. Like this, this pattern here that's in the black is a golden mean map I made for doing composition alignments. So it's basically a bunch of golden mean rectangles with the circles that connect. And you
Okay.
can lay over something to see where to put things.
Right.
But then it's a leftover graphic I have, so it ends up in this piece.
And so what does the golden mean again?
Golden mean is it's a phi. It's the ratio 1.66 or 1.61 to 1. And the Greeks used it to do all their architecture. It's like a golden rectangle, it's called.
And isn't it supposed to be most aesthetically pleasing to the human eye?
Yeah, it's a very aesthetic proportion that seems to fit over a lot of human physiology and architecture. And,
So photography.
yeah.
Tell me about this piece.
This is a coulee in eastern Washington that we found. It was like a really overcast day. At the very end of the day, the sun came out for a second. So Jim and I were like scrambling over these cliffs to try and find the spot, you know, on the side. This is about 1, 2, 3, 4 shots put together.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you were out there camping, or were you doing rock
It was a
hunting?
photographic camping trip, but we didn't camp there. We just stopped at the end of the day.
So what percentage of your work is photography these days?
Well, since my camera was stolen, I haven't done a whole lot of.
A couple of years ago?
Yeah, so this is this is Abandoned Beach in Oregon.
I was just near there.
Yeah,
Yeah, Portland, right?
I know that
Yeah, just like an
that's
hour
gotta-
west.
there's a
Portland.
big golf culture there. Like John Kidd and his sons go there and all play golf.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
So that's Banks Lake. That was a great
Wow, look at
morning.
that.
So Jim
Surreal.
and I.
Is that Eastern Washington again?
Yeah, this is Eastern Washington. This is called Ship Rock here. But the Grand Coulee Dam is part of that whole network of lakes and canals they built.
Yeah.
But we drove on this dirt road down to this basin here and spent the night where those trees are. And then we got up at dawn, before dawn, and hiked this trail around the edge of the lake. And then we were racing the sun to try and get a shot for the sun. And then Jim went off and did something, and I hiked up on top of these. It's like this kind of country.
Wow.
It's like
Scrambled
total
up there.
scramble to the top of this thing, and then I
Yeah.
did this panorama up there
There
like
you
about
are.
9 in the morning. That's me.
Oh,
Yep.
that's great.
And it's really steep. You don't realize how steep down it
Oh,
is
yeah.
to there, but it's
It
kind
looks
of
like it.
It was a good hike.
Looks like it.
Really hot too. A hot day.
Love that tree.
And what is it about seaming together multiple photographs that's more like what we experience as humans than just one flat photograph?
Well, you know, we have 2 eyes in our heads, so it's like there's already 2 cameras in your human body as opposed to one. So you tend to see things more in a cinemascope way. So this is actually more than 180 degrees of view. So I've compressed a panorama into a rectangle.
So
And
you
it's-
could wrap this halfway around your head,
You
and that's
could.
what you'd see.
Yeah, but what it is the brain is doing the same thing when it looks at the world. It's creating an image of a place that, in your brain that's a lot like this, even though the camera won't do that. So the reason I stitch it together is to reproduce that mental process that your brain is going through with the landscape.
And how many is this? 3 or 4?
No, it's about 40.
40, so it's
Yeah.
it's upper and lower too? Okay.
And both of you are filmmakers, so what does CinemaScope mean?
CinemaScope was just a brand for a type of wide format filmmaking where it was like 2.5 to 1. So really wide and like not quite as high. It was done in the 50s to compete with television. Right. And it's just a really...
What's the aspect ratio? Do you remember?
I think CinemaScope was 2.5 to 1.
2.5. They have 2.4 now, right?
Yeah.
So not that much.
But it was 60 millimeter.
Yeah.
CinemaScope was.
Yeah.
They don't do that much anymore.
For sure it was only 2.5? Not wider?
I think it was around 2.5. Yeah.
Here's your
Yeah.
architecture.
Or
So tell me what draws you to incorporate this into so many pieces?
So, one of the things with my landscapes, when I'm out in nature, I usually have a fairly spiritual experience with the landscapes that I'm in. I'm going to places that are really beautiful, and some of this graphic stuff is my attempt to create a sense of the unseen world that you might feel but not see when you're there. And I want to give it actually a real tactile presence in the art, so that you not only get the landscape, but you get this sense of energy that might be there.
And so the geometric shapes symbolize some sort of energy, like I think of them as almost a mapping.
Yeah, to me it's like a mysterious, like there's no explanation for what these mean.
Just energy.
But you get these energies and you sense there's a meaning and a complexity behind it.
Awesome.
And you also try and add a little bit more of a natural element, like you tend to not have everything be perfectly in focus or...
Right. Well, like with digital technology, you can get a perfectly pristine, crisp image and it looks false to people. So I always put noise or dirt or texture into the digital file to make it look more real.
Yeah. What's the Japanese technique of always leaving a little imperfection?
Well, wabi-sabi, you might be thinking of that. There's another term too.
I remember this is an older piece, isn't it?
Yeah, this is very old.
And this was an award winner in a New York competition.
Yeah, I was in a New York gallery with these pieces.
Yeah.
This is all trees from a golf course in Hawaii.
No,
Yeah.
some of them are, one's Jamaica, isn't it? So one of these is from Jamaica.
Yeah, this is, wait. No, I don't think there's any
I
Jamaican.
think so. These weren't just all Hawaii. It's
It's
my
almost
memory.
all Hawaii. One of these little ones might be Jamaica. It's hard to keep track, but a lot of lava and stuff,
Yeah. So, tell me, what's your percentage of time now devoted to rock, wood, glass, painting?
So the summer is almost all rock now,
Okay.
and then the winter becomes wood.
Yep.
So I switch with the seasons.
Nice.
And then when it's really crappy out, sometimes I'll be in here doing photography or painting. Like I did a series of watercolors last winter,
Yep.
which I really was happy with. It started out as, let me get it, show you.
Oh, look, here's Alabama Hills.
Yeah, two of them.
Yep. Cool.
So I started out like with my watercolors, just doing these color tests. Like I'd come in every day and I'd pick the different colors and find which paints worked together and created these like granular effects and make notes about it. And just day after day, I would pick different colors and put them together.
So you could actually use these as artworks in themselves.
Oh yeah, totally. I've sold a couple of them.
Oh, yeah. Good
But
sketches.
It's really just
Color
experimenting.
and texture.
Yeah, and watching how the water affects the paint. So I just do tons of these, and then finally, at the end of that, like 3 weeks, I got serious and did, let's see if I can find it here. I did larger scale, paintings that are pretty serious work. So like, this came out of that exercise of playing with that.
How did you splatter that on there?
It's a powdered pigment that you put on there.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that cool?
It catches the light in different ways.
Yeah, there's always like iridescent qualities.
Yeah.
And have you always
good,
worked
very-
with powdered pigment, or was that a discovery that you made in your career?
Oh, I think that it's just one of the tools in the palette in terms of types of paint that you use. I mean, most
Beautiful.
people use
I
it.
love how it shows up at certain angles, and then you've got this sort of whole spiritual quality of this,
Yeah.
this energy.
So, you know, each of these came from those color tests.
Because my memory was that you started with watercolor and like Japanese brush, and then you kept adding mediums and types of paint.
Yeah, so this powdered
Layer.
color is a watercolor powder that's meant to be mixed with water.
Okay.
And I just at one point started sprinkling it directly onto the wet surface.
And letting it kind of absorb.
Absorb into it,
Yeah.
so you get a sort of a powdered effect. It's more like a texture on top.
And I know after 9/11 you did a whole series
Wow, love
of
it.
red, like you painted in only red for at least a number of weeks after 9/11.
Yeah, there was a couple of red paintings I did after 9/11.
Wow. So talk to me about size of your work. Do you ever work really big? Or have you?
Yeah,
like
so-
I noticed up here, that's a very big.
So I've done these
Print.
huge prints. There's an issue with that, which is, where's it gonna go, right?
Right.
So if it's not going to a big museum, I've kind of scaled
Well,
back
there's
from
a lot of
doing the
people
really
have.
large paintings,
Yeah.
because there's a limited number of places that can live.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of where I want to go with my painting, is do some really large pieces of this on a larger
I
scale.
was gonna say, like, I love that. I could see it on a wall,
Oh, yeah.
big wall, you know.
And you have a figurative around the corner that was in that Angels show.
Yeah.
That was a really
Well,
big
the Angels
painting.
one's down over here, but that's another big figurative that I did.
Gorgeous. Look at that.
This one?
Is it glass?
Yeah,
Just
that's fused
a
glass.
deep purple.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Let me put this away so it's not.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you like that. This is something I did
Yeah.
just last year as painting.
Uh-huh. So you're still painting and you're still working in all the mediums.
Yeah, they're all like, stone sculpture is the most recent of all the things that I've gotten myself into.
Yeah.
Like I just did this print last
Gotten
week.
myself into.
This is
Beautiful.
an abstract
Nice.
print that's just taking 5 or 6 different sources and remixing.
Yeah.
And I love how you have some like calligraphy and poetry and
In a face.
This one sold at the last open studio. That's for a landscape from
Wow.
Costa Rica.
Uh-huh.
And I
Stars.
took fragments of poetry from Illustrator and blew them up to all
Oh,
this confetti and then
Wow.
put it back on here. So,
that's cool.
yeah.
Really cool. And see, now that in itself, the story of knowing that adds a whole nother dimension to this piece.
Absolutely.
does.
So I would have said, oh, I can see now that it's not stars. I thought that, you know those cool images from NASA?
Yeah.
They're coming from the Hubble, of the, they'll take a section of the universe
Right.
and just massive stars.
Yeah. No.
So I thought that was,
So this was the client saw the original that didn't have the sparkles on it. And she said, oh, I love how you add sparkles to your prints and stuff. And she was referring to that powdered pigment and other things I've done. So I just came up with that as like a way to fulfill her request. And it actually made the piece better.
but I
think.
love that it's poetry that's been
Yeah.
confettied.
Right.
Could be like a Rumi poem or something. And
It was like a Rumi poem that just reconfigured itself. Check out these.
So are you doing, oh,
I think these are bases. These are bases for people bought work and they wanted
That is
bases.
gorgeous wood.
Isn't that a beautiful wood?
That is amazing.
What is it? Yeah.
I don't know. It's some tropical wood I got in the bin at the woodworking store.
Found
I
it.
mean, it's covered in all this wax,
Uh-huh.
and then you polish it down and find out what's in
You
there.
sanded it down?
Yeah. This one I did yesterday. This is ready to put on display now, actually. So this is going to go in this is what I see in the woodworking bin, this waxed wood, and
Yep.
that's what's underneath it.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So this
And
will,
that's
this will
from-
end up underneath that, here, hold this.
So you sand the wax off?
Yeah,
Sand it down, and then
Use
do
a
you
little-
finish it with something else?
I use a little turpentine to get the wax off, and I sand it,
Mm-hmm.
and then put a Danish oil on it.
So this has been sanded, unwaxed, sanded, and then Danish oil.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
So, got a great texture.
it's a beautiful way to finish wood.
So before and after.
Mm-hmm. And Dan says you a lot, and he means I, because he definitely,
Does everything himself.
yeah.
Well, if you wanted to do it, you would be.
This is heavy. Why do they wax it like that?
So the waxing, when they cut the wood and it's curing, you don't want it to crack, right? It slows down the drying
Right,
process. So
Does
it slowly
Does it
dries.
come- Oh, so it does dry through the wax.
Yeah,
Now, is this class?
something hit it.
You're kidding. It's beautiful.
I know.
Everything is
That's why I left it.
made to order.
Made to order. So this one here is supposed to go in the other one. I just took these two pieces out of the gallery yesterday, or Thursday, I don't know. This is the base of that piece. This piece of copper, you need to get going pretty soon, I think. What time
A
is it?
couple minutes. It's
Oh, cool.
almost 11.
So I had to forge this copper in 3 dimensions. Right, so if you think about it, it's a piece of straight copper that I
Yep.
bent like a river,
Yep.
and then I conformed it to the topology of the torso.
And then you pounded it flat. And how'd you get to the end stage?
So what I did is I took a piece of electrical wire,
Mm-hmm.
and I had this carved, and I laid the wire out, and that was my template. So I kind of took the heavier copper and shaped it just so it fit the way the wire did. And then I cut the groove for it, and then these little nails hold in the copper. And then I sanded the whole thing.
Wow. Is this finished?
Yeah, well, I got a little cleanup to do for it, but it's a finished piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes with the waxing, they need a little polish and refurbishment once in a while. But that was a big challenging process to
I'll
put
bet.
that copper in. I didn't even know it was possible.
Yeah.
Because some of these, like over here, woodworkers will put a butterfly joint in to stabilize a crack.
Yep.
So it's the same technique, which is you put it in and sand the whole thing, and it looks like
Right.
it belongs
Yeah.
in the same plane.
I
But how
love
do you-
those butterfly joints.
Yeah. How do you get it so flush?
So the trick is so say you have this surface that you're gonna put the butterfly joint in, right?
Mhm.
You cut like a little butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
and then what you do is you mark very carefully
Okay.
where it rests on there.
Okay.
And the
Good.
only cut you have to I have to worry
Cut
about
it as.
is the very top centimeter
Mm-hmm.
where it's flush.
Sure.
So you make that first with a chisel, you very carefully,
Wow.
and then, digging further down, it can be less of a tight fit.
You actually chisel it. You're not sawing it.
This gets chiseled. I do a router, I take it up to about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then I chisel the final straight line.
What was the inspiration for this metal piece?
So this whole piece was not meant to be with this, it was sort of like it was gonna be for another piece of basalt, but the idea was to have the material change on the topology, so wood changes to metal and back again. But what was interesting was, I did this in a welding class, and then this wood hadn't dried yet. So I waited, and then by the time this dried, this metal piece
Correct.
was too big for the wood.
Oh.
So I had to recarve the wood.
Oh yeah.
It
Is it
literally shrunk like a
Yeah.
1/4 inch.
Wow. Well,
So
all the water
this
coming out of
was
it,
a 1/4 inch shorter, just,
No way.
it shrunk.
Wow. And then did this crack happen after? So
It
and then
was already there, but I actually replaced this because it
Oh.
had broken the butterfly joint that was there before.
wow.
That's how strong
Wow.
the drying force of the wood is.
Get another one over there.
And what about the little glowing dots on the cast glass
so-
piece?
I was explaining to Dave that you use these resin sand cores molten glass goes over this, right? And it forms that shape in the glass.
Yeah.
If I drill holes in this, like with a drill, the glass will go down into the hole, and then the surface tension of the molten glass will stop it from going all the way in. And you get these little air-dried bubbles.
Oh, wow.
So if you look over here on this side,
Wow.
you can see exactly what I'm talking about on the other side.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
went down into the hole and stopped. And it creates a perfectly optical, flawless
Oh my
bubble
God.
of glass.
Oh, wow.
It's a great trick.
That's amazing. How'd you learn that?
Kind of by accident, because I thought that the glass was going to go all the way into the hole, and it didn't. And then I saw it looks like a perfect bubble,
Totally look.
and it became another, trick in the bag of tricks to create the glass art.
And you're doing a lot of cutting edge with this cast glass. It's discovering what is really appealing to you.
People have been blowing glass since the Renaissance, so there's like a really deep, rich tradition, and to get good in that field, you could spend 15 years and still be kind of trying to get there.
Yeah.
Cast glass has been going on since the 60s.
That's it.
Pretty much. This guy in Sweden started to use this technique that the steel foundry was using with glass.
Yeah.
And so he decided to use glass instead of steel,
Yeah.
and then that started art casting.
Oh, cool.
It's a sand cast process that's very similar to where they make metal parts for machinery and stuff. So there's a lot to learn and a lot to explore there that hasn't been figured out
I can see building a wall, in your home.
with these bricks.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
The basement's got a bunch of pieces that are going to be used that way. Like these are similar. Like, these could be done the same way. These could be tiles in a wall. Because look the way it looks. When it's,
Oh, yeah. Oh, awesome.
Isn't that cool? And depending on how the light hits it,
Right.
it just becomes really dynamic.
Right. Glass bricks, custom.
So
glass
even
bricks.
this one, see, it's poured in layers. And I took Japanese rice paper and I put the colored frit on the rice paper. And I'd pour it halfway, and then I'd take the sheet of rice paper and put it in there, and it would be like poof into flames.
Yeah.
And leave behind the color.
Residue.
And then I'd put another layer in, and then.
So you're doing a lot of experiments.
Yeah.
Cool.
See, all these bubbles came from the carbon and gas from the paper bubbling up through the glass.
It's beautiful.
So you get these really, alchemic
Dynamic.
like effects going on.
Yeah.
This one, have
Alchemists.
you ever seen those papers in the art store that have like the silk screen pattern on it? So that's what I did for this, was put that paper at the bottom of the pour, and it actually translated into the
Oh, wow.
glass.
With paint on it? The paper had paint?
Yeah,
So
so
it just must have absolutely burned up.
in
in
an
an
instant.
instant.
In an instant, yeah.
But, so how do you pour so that it doesn't, disturb the glass? Disturb the paper?
Oh, you just it comes off in a big glob right away. It happens so fast.
Boom, yeah.
So like, see this piece over here that you were looking at before? This,
Yep.
all these little pieces of sheet glass are actually contact glued to rice paper.
Oh,
And I put them in the bottom of the mold. It's a big flat mold before I fold it up.
Yep.
And the rice paper, when it flash burns, creates a release from the sand to the glass. So that, like, the chemical carbon and stuff that's coming off the outgassing paper
yeah.
keeps the sand from sticking. So you
Yeah.
get this beautiful result.
So how do you achieve this abalone-like color?
So these are little pieces of dichroic glass that I buy in sheet form,
Okay.
not unlike this stuff here, right?
And then you take a lot of care of laying those
And I
out.
carefully cut these and I lay them out in a pattern. And I use the glue and the rice paper to hold the pattern.
Is this something you would put into a glass?
Well, this is something I did in fused glass. I put these little pieces together
I
and
see.
created
Would
that.
would you use that in another piece?
I could easily put it inside something else. There's so many things you can do with this stuff.
Yeah.
But these chunks of glass all have different dichroic and metallic properties sometimes.
And then
The
you,
studio is looking so neat and organized.
It's because of the
Isn't it?
open studio. If
And
you
the-
come like 2 months ago, it would have been like, bomb, like,
You must have taken quite a bit of time to
Yeah.
get everything That's a
Take
lot
a
of
quick
work.
look at the basement, because what I do is everything goes down into the basement.
Okay.